Today we're getting scientific, and we're going to be returning to a question that I asked way back in 2015. What is the fastest way to kill something in Minecraft? Since 2015, quite a lot of new items have been introduced into the game, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to do some testing. Now, although I've tried my best to do this test as scientifically as possible, you have to keep in mind that I am a complete moron, but I'm hoping that shouldn't affect the results because I've gathered them in a thorough fashion. Each of the killing methods has been tested a number of times, and any that have variants due to user ability, I have taken the fastest out of the bunch. Because averages don't matter here, we're looking for the fastest method. Now, with anything that relies on in-game luck, for example critical hits from bows, I've still included the fastest time, but I will also mention that there's significant variance due to the in-game randomizer. So I think that's all of the boring guidelines out the way. Of course, I've probably missed some, so make sure you check the description and the comments before you start screaming at me. But anyway, let's get this test underway. The control. In any scientific experiment, it's always good to get a control with absolutely no other elements introduced. So here I am, punching a creeper to death. And it took a painfully long time, 10.5 seconds, to go from full health to death. Netherite sword. See, there's a bit of a knack to killing entities, which is the invulnerable zone. When you hit a mob, they become invulnerable or unable to take damage for half a second. So when you're hitting a mob with a sword, you have to minimize the amount of time between the invulnerable zone and the next hit you take. And that's why I did a number of hits on this one, and I managed to get it down to 1.002 seconds to kill the creeper. Enchanted sword. Now this makes a huge difference because you no longer have to do 2 critical hits. You can do a regular hit and then a critical hit, which saves time on the jump and then wait to fall down and strike. It got the time down to 0.54 seconds, which is quite a massive saving. Now if we add strength into the mix, with a critical hit, you can get a 1-hit kill. Now this seems like it would then be an instant death, but of course we have to wait for the jump to come up, and then once we reach that point and gradually start coming down, that's when we can strike. And this process takes 0.33 seconds to complete. So that's the sword done for now. Let's move on to the bow. And the fastest that I managed to get out of a fully enchanted bow was 1.15 seconds. But you have to remember, it does vary quite significantly because there's a certain element of randomization to bows in that critical hits are randomized by Minecraft. Sometimes it's a 1-hit kill, sometimes it takes 2 hits from the bow to kill off the mob. But let's see if harming arrows can fix that. The answer is no. It still took occasionally 2 hits to kill off the creeper, and the fastest time again that I managed to kill off the creeper was 1.15 seconds because of course you have to wait for that bow to wind up so that you can actually shoot the arrow. Now I wonder if a preloaded crossbow can fix that situation, and the answer is yes. But this result is slightly up for debate because of course you've had to invest some time into preloading all of the crossbows so you can do it. With that being said, with an enchanted crossbow, managed to kill off the creeper in 0.54 seconds. It took 2 shots, and that half-second gap is of course the invulnerable zone of the creeper. Can I achieve a 1-hit kill with a rocket? No. Unfortunately not. Despite filling up the firework with as many firework stars as I possibly could, it just didn't quite have the juice to kill off the creeper in 1 hit, meaning the time was exactly the same, 0.54 seconds. Just for the sake of it, let's try a trident, and as expected, it was utterly pants. Despite it being fully loaded with enchantments, even channeling, and in a thunderstorm, it still took 1.7 seconds to kill off the creeper, which is pretty pathetic given how hard they are to get. What about potions of harming? I was quietly confident about this one because although I knew we weren't going to get a 1-hit kill, I expected the 2 hits of damage to be in really quick succession and potentially edge out things like enchanted swords and crossbows. But unfortunately, I didn't factor in the length of time it takes for the throw to cause damage, and also the time between the invulnerable zone and the second hit seemed to be quite long, which led to the fastest time still being very disappointing at 0.67 seconds. So how do the results stand at this point in time? We've made our way through all of the manual methods of killing off mobs in Minecraft, and currently enchanted sword with strength potion is firmly in first position, with regular enchanted swords and also crossbows coming up just behind. Now we're moving on to the methods of killing in Minecraft that don't necessarily involve the player. We can be sitting back, relaxing, and having everything die around us with minimal effort, which, that sounds depressing, doesn't it? First things first, magma blocks. And this was hugely surprising for me. I mean, I knew they were relatively slow, but I didn't realize how slow they were. 9.5 seconds to kill off our creeper. That's ridiculous. But the even bigger surprise was the wither rose. That came in at 9.5 seconds as well. I totally thought they were considerably faster than things like magma blocks. I was expecting around about 4 seconds for wither roses, so that has, well, that surprised me big time. Let's see what entity cramming with minecarts can do. And it turns out it's quite a lot. Just cramming a bunch of minecarts into a hole can kill off a creeper within 2 seconds. 20 hearts of damage just gone. Just caused by sitting in a bunch of minecarts at the same time. That's wild. But on the topic of wild, what about a wild berry bush? And this is a result that I did not expect to get in my killing testing video. The mob didn't die. It turns out that you only take damage in a wild berry bush if you're moving around, which I guess makes sense. If you're in a thorn bush, as long as you stay still, you're not going to get more thorns in you. But I can't help but feel like it would still hurt to be stood in a thorn bush. But what do I know? I don't stand in thorn bushes too often. Clearly Mojang did a lot of market research into the wild berry bush, and they found that if you stay still in a thorn bush, you're fine. That was a rant that I wasn't expecting to go on, but here we are. Anyway, dripstone. Introduced in Minecraft 1.17, these amplify fall damage. Now the creeper only has to fall a small distance to die, and it takes 0.88 seconds for it to do so, which is really quite fast. What about maxed out firework rockets in dispensers? These deal a seriously large amount of damage per rocket, but once again, we're hit with the same problem that we face with the harming potions, in that there clearly is some delay in other parts of the system. Maybe the travelling from the dispensers to the creeper, and then also just timings of things led to a very disappointing time of 0.95 seconds to kill it off. The old favourite, lava. And just like the minecarts, it takes 2 seconds to kill off the creeper. Now I'm actually more impressed that the minecarts are just as fast as infamous Minecraft lava. What about fire then? Well, that came in at 9.5 seconds, exactly the same as magma blocks as wither roses. To be honest, I'm not too surprised with this one. I've always known that fire is a pretty slow way to die. What's not slow is TNT. Obviously, the actual death from TNT is instantaneous. You die immediately. But there is the charge up time of the TNT, and when using dispensers there's also a little bit of delay there, which led to a time of 4.08 seconds to die from it, which is actually incredibly disappointing compared to all the others. Now there is one way to get rid of the charge up time, and that is to ditch the TNT entirely and instead make use of creepers and ignite them with a flint and steel. Now this took 1.45 seconds to deal the same amount of damage, which honestly I think is incredibly impressive, but it is pretty impractical. In fact, there are a fair few impractical ways of killing things in Minecraft, but that doesn't mean that they don't have merit. So I guess we should quickly go through those as well. A floating anvil. You see, obviously if we'd used a regular falling anvil, then it would take ages for it to drop and kill off our creeper. But there is a trick that you can do where you float it in water and the anvil thinks that it's falling for that entire time. So then when you remove the water and soul sand, it will do the equivalent amount of damage as if it was falling the entire time that it was floating. Unfortunately though, it's still not really that fast. I mean, it's 0.91 seconds, but also you have to set the whole thing up. And the anvil doesn't actually stay forever. It eventually despawns, which makes it incredibly impractical. End crystals. Now it goes without saying that these things are fast. To place and destroy it, it takes 0.1 seconds to kill off our creeper. And if you don't place it and you just punch it, it took 3 frames. 3 frames to go from the punch to the kill. That is completely ridiculous, but obviously they do explode everything around them, and if you're punching it in survival mode, it's gonna feel pretty rough. But who cares about survival mode when you've got creative mode? Just chuck down a command block, type in the /kill command, and when you hit the button, it will take 1 frame of my 60 frames a second video to kill off the creeper. I actually don't know how fast this is because I'm limited. I'm now limited to the frames per second of my video. It's probably much faster, but that's as quick as I could go. But let's be honest, that isn't particularly exciting. What about TNT minecarts? Now these are hugely impractical because every single time you use this thing, you essentially have to rebuild it, replacing the minecart rails and also all of the TNT minecarts and anything else that's exploded. But when you do use it, it is incredibly quick, taking 0.22 seconds to kill off our creeper. Now at that point, I thought it was all over. But then I remembered something. When you're doing critical hits, it's not necessarily a jump shot. All you have to do is fall to get the critical hit. So if on my test with my enchanted netherite sword and strength 2 potions, instead of jumping to get my critical hits, I just start from an elevated position and fall, then my time should be considerably faster. And it most certainly was. Taking just 0.11 seconds, 7 frames in my video to kill the creeper. Now that is within the margin of error of the end crystal. And I think with a little bit more practice, I probably would be able to match up with the end crystal, which let's face it, is quite a lot more practical. So there we go, the results are in. And out of all of the ones that I think matter and are practical and reliable, we've got end crystals at 0.1 second. It's not really that practical, but it is quite cool and it is incredibly fast, and closely followed by a falling critical hit with strength 2 from an enchanted netherite sword at 0.11 seconds. Incredibly close there. Then a jump critical hit from an enchanted netherite sword, that is 0.33 seconds. Harming potions 0.67 seconds, a dripstone fall at 0.88 seconds, minecarts at 2 seconds, and wild bushes not killing anything at all. I don't know if this was informative or not, but I have enjoyed killing things for your entertainment, so if you want to see that more often, then please subscribe. But anyway, I'll catch you in the next video. See ya! And I just want to use this outro to mention that of course there are going to be methods in Minecraft that deal more damage than the ones featured in this video, but often they involve TNT and launchers and things, which takes more time. And I'm looking for the fastest ways to kill things in Minecraft, the minimal amount of time between activation and death.